Okay, guys, I'm recording today's lesson, basically the second half of it. That's why I wrote part 2 on the introduction in the beginning page of this. This is the reason why I wrote part 2, due to the mere fact that there was an error that actually happened during the recording process when we were setting it up in studio. So basically half of the lesson has then been lost due to that error. There's some syncing problems that are going on there. So then what's going to happen now, I'll give you kind of a bit of a rundown what's going to happen now. Let's just go to the next page. First, what you'll see in the video that you run to is going to be me, obviously, as the introduction. And then I'm going to then what's going to happen is you're going to see the studio setup happen in studio. Basically, that at least has been able to be preserved. So that is still intact. So I'll include that within the video, you get. And then everything else from there on end, which is the setting up of FL Studio, NuTone plugin, talking about the NuTone plugin, the Vocodex plugin, and then vocal editing will then be recorded in this as a second part of this video, you get. So that is due to the error that happened through that was on the program that I was using to record the class lecture. So just bear with us now. In this case, what I'm basically going to show you, especially when it comes to the studio, for the setup of FL Studio, what you're going to be seeing there is going to basically apply still to how you do it within Studio B at the college. You get what I'm saying? So in this case then, everything that I'll be using or saying will be in context of Studio B, you get, so that you guys can watch this video and be able to kind of set it up also in Studio B. So make sure that you follow what I say quite precisely. It will be kind of instructions. But first, on the first part of the video, you're going to see the studio setup happening inside the Studio B. Then from there, I'll take where we stopped basically, or where the video stopped recording, and then I'll start talking about the setup of FL Studio within Studio B, right? Obviously, you need to just take into consideration that I won't be having the same channels because I'm not recording from Studio B, but I'm recording from home. So I won't have the same channels, but I will mention which channels to best use. Because remember, on the last part of the video, we start talking about setting it up, like your outputs are set up for 3 and 4, etc., etc. So I'll be informing you of the same information, but I will not be able to do it because I'm not using the same sound card, which is the Focusrite Sapphire, right? Okay, then from there, I will close the session now after I've shown you how to set up your session to record. So I'll close the session and then we'll go straight into another session where I've already recorded, and then I'll show you how to use NuTone, right, as a pitch corrector plugin, and then I'll show you how to use Vocodex, which kind of implements effects like Daft Punk. If you guys have listened to Daft Punk before, right? If you've listened to Daft Punk, then you'll see what Vocodex can do for you. Then we'll start talking about the vocal editing parts that are there, right? That you can basically do within FL. So do yourself a favor, watch the whole video so you can see how to set up physically and practically in Studio B, and so you can see how to set up FL so that you can use it within Studio B again for your projects when you're recording vocals or any other form of microphone recording that's happening within Studio B that you might want to do for your projects. So guys, let's jump into FL and yeah, see you there. Okay guys, first we're going to learn, I'm going to teach you guys on how to basically connect the studio, right? I'm going to remind you guys of what you basically need to be able to book. But if you do forget it, you can just go to page 158, 258 on the test book, and it literally tells you exactly what you need to book when you're making a booking. So be able to have a successful recording from this side to that side, right?
Equipment and everything.
Yes, exactly, all this equipment that's here. Now, what's important to kind of also remember, or what I want to kind of point out right now, is that when I teach you now, I'm going to teach you in the case of recording inside here, but I'm also going to include recording that side, you understand? How to connect for that side, so that you guys still remember how to connect that side. But for the purpose of this lesson, and so I can be able to take this video, I have to keep it here. You understand? Now that's going to be missions to try and record it from that side.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, generally what you need first is 2 XLRs, right? One is for your microphone input, and then the other one is for your talkback microphone, which is this one, right? Then you're obviously going to need a shock mount and a pop filter. When you're booking it from the systems, this should be together. I think the way I set it up, it should be actually Rode mic plus this and this.
Okay.
You understand? But just check it out. If you don't see plus shock mount plus pop filter, that means you must book shock mount. Nah? I think I did actually separate them so that you guys have the knowledge that you have to book a shock mount. Okay, cool. Then obviously, Rode microphone is what you're going to use mostly for the vocals, right? You're also going to have it accessible for your other SSE projects also. And you're probably going to have to book 58 and SM58. Now that's usually for the talkback, or SM57 for recording guitars. But they'll teach you that using during SSE. Yeah? And then what then you're gonna book is headphones. Obviously, it must come with the jack, right? Jack. Okay, cool. And then turnaround cable that's needed is gonna be male turnaround cable to male TRS, right? Tip ring sleeve, right? Applies for this male, right? And then you're gonna need female turnaround cable, yeah, to female TRS, right?
For the headphone.
For the headphone returns. So that's for the microphone's input, nah? Bring the headphones this side, actually, and that applies to the headphone returns. And then 2 stereo jacks, right? Okay, cool. First, I'm gonna show you guys how to set up a microphone when we are in here, right? Cool. Or when it's that side. So everything that I do here, imagine it going on that side, right? Right. Let me just tap the camera. Do not disappoint me. Okay. Right. I think I'm in its trajectory. Let's just lift it up a bit. There we go. Right. Cool. Important part about setting up a microphone, just bring it here, is that whenever you set up a microphone, please make sure that all the joints are tight and kind of locked in. But don't over tighten them. There's no need, right? In honest case, by just making sure that it's stopped by doing this, at least you've got enough grip. You get what I'm saying? I can lift this up without any problems, right? It's very important that you make sure all joints are properly tightened. Don't over tighten them, please, otherwise you're ruining the threads on the microphone stands, right? Then another thing that's very important to notice is that if you check on the mic stand, not the roof, okay, cool, on the mic stand, there must be a leg that faces the same direction as the direction of your shock mount leading out, right? So as you can see, I've got a leg facing now this way, right? Because I'm going to put my shock mount this way. You understand?
Why?
I'll show you now. We'll get to it now.
I think it's for the weight, huh?
It's for the weight plus, I'll show you guys, relax. Now we're getting there. Now, whenever you apply your shock mount on, you want to loosen this part, right? And then twist this part, not your shock mount. You understand? That's how you save speed. I've seen people doing this.
Taking forever.
Yes, exactly. So you just keep this still and, hey. And you quickly screw the smaller part in. Same direction as the other leg. And I'll give you the reason now. Now, as you're applying your shock mount, please make sure of the following. I want to just tighten there. Okay. As you're applying your shock mount, please just make sure of the following. Let me just do that. So that is tight also. There we go. Cool. That here it's tightened so it doesn't loosen when the mic sits on it, right? And also all the points are placed in. Otherwise it's easy for your mic to flip over. You get. Now the reason why it needs to be in the same direction as the leg. If you've got artists, right? Artists tend to record with their eyes closed sometimes, or sometimes they have hand gestures, right? So someone might hit this and it prevents it from falling that way, and because the weight of the mic is going to be here, it's going to prevent it from going even further. You understand? it makes it harder for the microphone to
Topple over.
Yes, exactly. When you are recording somebody. Right. Afterwards, you follow through with the microphone. Right. Now, when you follow through with the microphone, hey, okay, cool. Put in the microphone there with the washer. Right. It must be the microphone, then the shock mount, their part, and then the washer underneath it, basically to lock it in. If it really wants to be locked in, let's just do that. And again, no need to over tighten this. This is fairly enough. You get what I'm saying? Now, the weight of the microphone also holds it. Shock mount holds it from falling. You understand? Remember, if you've paid, for example, if you've bought like the U87, you've paid like 67,000 for a microphone.
Sure.
If it falls, yeah, no. Oh man, yeah, you're gonna charge that customer quite a substantial amount, right? Cool. So I've got the posture of my microphone. I'm just gonna bring that down for myself because I want it to be in the camera trajectory again. Guys, see that? We good? Questions here? Okay, cool. Then we are gonna deal with plugging in the microphone, right? Obviously, simple stuff. Everybody knows how to plug in the microphone. Then when I'm showing you this, I'm also then gonna break it down as to how to connect it that side. Nah? Okay, cool. So obviously you're gonna plug it into the microphone. Before you plug it into your sound card, you need to make sure that phantom power is switched off, nah? And also level is down, right? Please make sure that do not plug in the microphone when phantom power is switched on, because that means you're hot plugging it in. The likelihood of destroying or damaging the microphone becomes higher, nah? So please make sure whenever you plug in the microphone, it needs to be switched off. Okay. Then we're gonna move on to the back end. Right. Right. Grab camera and its leg. Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna ask you to point it here. So you're gonna hold it here. Cool. You just need to point it there. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Right. Then you'll just follow me. I'm also gonna be teaching from here, no? Okay, cool. Yeah. I'll don't worry. I will do it very quite attentively. So we'll have proper communication. Okay, cool. So when you are that side, right? What you need to understand that these are kind of two entities, right? You've got that side, and that's connected with the snake that comes all the way here, right, into this side. Then you've got this system here. You understand, right? This is now connected to this part here, so this counts as a unit because it's connected via this firewire cable. You understand that, right? So that's a unit on its own, and that's a unit on its own. Your mission is to make sure that these two communicate. You understand? But correctly. Because if it communicates correctly, then it gets to Fruity Loops. You get what I'm saying? Okay, cool. So, before we start talking about connecting this side, I'm going to pull up this input slot, right? What's important to understand that these are inputs, né? And the red ones are returns. You understand? So this is for the headphones returning back that way. This is to ensure that signal from that side comes here. This is to ensure that the signal from this side goes there, right? So now, since we're dealing with inputs, right, I'm going to be dealing with these cables here, right? Okay, say now that side, I decide to plug it into channel number 4, right? What number do I choose here?
4.
Exactly, right? Cool. So I'm going to look for channel number 4. There we go. Right. Now I take channel number 4, right? And I plug it into channel number 6 here. What input channel do I use on FL?
6.
Exactly. You get what I'm saying? It's good. So you guys understand that. You've got the grasp of that, right? that whatever channel you plug in that side, ne, will not matter. What will matter is where you plug in the black cable, the input. You understand? Because you are connecting now that entity to this using this cable, and you are telling it, okay, fine, fetch that, or you're gonna tell this one to fetch it from number 6, right? But for the class purposes, this is not gonna be important today, ne? But do remember that now if you are that side, because we are recording from this side. So on my side then, what I will concentrate on is channel number 1 using this XLR. Right? Cool. Just carry it and follow me through. Okay, so what I generally advise people, you can just aim for this area here, no? What I generally advise people then to do is whenever they're setting up a microphone, right, and your XLR cable is long, right? Let's say maybe I had this somewhere close to here. What you want to do is ensure that it's as neat as possible, right? Whenever you're setting up studio or setting up for your artist, because your artist, you want your artist to be as free as possible. They shouldn't be worried about tripping over cables. They shouldn't be worried about microphones falling. That's why we set up the microphone in a certain way so they can feel free, you understand, to express themselves. Okay, cool. Then you can roll it up. Let's make it just a bit the side. Hey. Okay, you can roll it up for yourself. If it would just stop twisting and twirling, and that's a bit too long, and bring it in and basically tuck it in there, right? So if it does actually in some way trip here, it doesn't need to worry because it'll be pulling the cable. You understand? And if it does in any form trip, it will take some time for it to actually even reach to the point where it does affect your microphone. So then you just nick that in, and you've got your microphone set up into channel number 1, right? Then we're gonna deal with our talkback. Talkback, we're gonna be dealing with these. Nah? Again, we're gonna just go point in the same direction there. Now we concentrate on the headphone amp. I'm gonna shine some light into that.
And that's the one under this one.
Yes. Right. So now, if you
turn the camera, it's fine.
yeah, definitely. Okay, your aim now here is to ensure that you plug it into your talkback area right here, right? Now, one thing to remember that's important about this is the fact that here you don't need to worry about anything because you've connected directly into your headphone amp. So it's not a routing. You don't have to place anything on Pro Tools, on Fruity Loops to make it get through your headphone or through your artist headphone. Literally because you've plugged it into the entity of the headphone or the hardware headphone amp, right? You know that it will definitely get to your person's headphones. You get what I'm saying? So all you gotta do is take your XLR and plug it into there for your talkback microphone, and then plug it into your talkback. So just get it there. Where's my talkback? There we go. And just like this, you've got your talkback going all the way to there, right? Cool. And you can place that. Let me just give you some space there. There we go. And place it there for yourself. Then we're still gonna stay here, right? Now we are done with whatever has to deal with input. You understand? When it comes from microphones. So microphone signal will get to the sound card, right? And then also talkback signal will get to the headphones of the artist. Followed through, then you can stay there, it's fine. You can stay there. I'll tell you when we come this side is our 2 stereo cables, right? Now we begin the part where we deal with headphone returns in its entirety. So you're gonna have these 2 cables. They're gonna deal with the output that connects this entity here, right? So again, signal is moving from the computer, right, from the Mac, nice and warm, down to the sound card, right? Sorry, from the sound card it needs to come out of the outputs. So you've got how many outputs? You've got 1 and 2 basically that goes to, let me just shut some light. 1 and 2 that goes to the monitors, right? And then you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 as a pair, 7, 8, and 9, 10, right? So that's a pair. 3, 4 is a pair, 5, 6 is a pair, and so on and so on, right? That's left and right channel. So that will be left, right? That's really up to you. It doesn't really matter in this case, right? So now what I want to do is make sure that what signal comes from here, I know that it will come out of this when I set it into FL, right? And then from there, I need to make sure that it reaches to my headphone, because whatever is plugged into my headphone, that understanding needs to click in. Whatever's plugged into my headphone is definitely getting to my client. You understand? Or it's getting to the artist. So then I need to make sure that I connect the outputs together so that it gets to the other side. So I'm going to take this, bring it down here into the headphone amp, and I'm going to choose input A, right? And plug it in to input A. So now I know that it goes from my computer, from my computer to the sound card, output to the sound card, straight into my headphone amp, and input A will supply that sound or that signal into channel 1, 2, 3, all the way until 6. You understand? In the case of input B, same thing. You understand? So if I decided to plug it into input B, I'd also be supplying signal coming from, as a return, coming from the computer and supplying it into 1 and 6. So now 1, 2 came out of here into the headphone amp. Now everything is connected in terms of getting to the headphone. You understand? Okay, cool. That sorts out the back. Let's go to the front. So you can come with it.
Cable can short.
It shouldn't be. Just something is pushing it. It's that XLR.
Which one? This one?
Yeah, just do this.
That's for the mic.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Okay, I'll just point it here. It's fine. Just watch the chair. Can you? Thank you. And here. Okay. I really hope they can see, but I know if I push it like this, it should make it easier. There we go. I hope so. Okay, cool. Now when we get here, comes the part where we use our turnarounds. Now remember, the male turnaround cable, right? So that's male, right, to male XLR, right? Basically deals with this side of the booth, right? And then the female is that side of the booth, right? Now remember what I said. I said that the red cables are the return cables going back, right? So the return now. So I'm taking signal from here now, sending it back to them, right? Cool. So I'm gonna plug this into number 3. I hope they can see, man. Yeah, can't be finicky too much about this thing. I'm not even sure. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna plug that into number 3, right? Then now, let's say I take this female cable. Remember this female cable here, right? It's gonna connect directly to the headphone, which is headphone is gonna plug into there, right? Cool. So that if I take this, now I'm that side, right? And I plug it into channel number 2, right? What number should I use here?
2.
Yes. You get that? Even if I've got it on 3 here, because I'm connecting now that entity that side, coming through with the snake through these red cables. From the red cables, it comes through and connects to this, and then gets signal from this. So signal now goes from here, right, through. So it goes from here through the sound card coming out of 3 and 4, right, into the headphone amp in input A, right, goes from the input A, and we chose number 3. If we chose number 3, I need to tell it now that, hey, with this knob that's right here, right, because each of these channels has got this knob that chooses A and B. You understand? I need to tell it now, fetch it from A, right, on channel number 3, because that's where I have it plugged in on channel number 3, right? Then from number 3 comes out, and then it will go into number 2, like this. Hey, like this, and it will come out of channel number 2 into this headphone return, this female turnaround, right? Then from the female turnaround into this, from the snake into this female turnaround, and then into the headphones. You get? And that's the signal flow that you kind of need to grasp. You get the understanding of that. But again, since we're not that side, we are this side, I can now take this directly and then just plug it into there. Just like this. And now this is plugged into my headphones, and basically
So
we are done with
actually
setup.
You won't need the turnaround if you're not recording that side. I mean,
You will need the turnaround still. How will you connect that part to this?
that's going that side, remember?
Yeah, but how do you connect that jack port without this turnaround?
I get that.
Okay.
Yes. All I'm saying is
Which-
this is only necessary if we're sending signal to that side.
What's only necessary?
Just,
That cable.
yeah.
Yeah. It is necessary. It is only necessary that you can take the headphone and plug it directly into
Yeah,
that.
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. The question was phrased a bit awkwardly. And it's like, but you said you won't need this. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? Okay, cool. So if you are connecting directly into here, you can bypass that, right? But I wanted to show you guys again how the whole thing works, right? Okay, cool. So I'm gonna place that away. Okay. Now we've got our setup basically done, complete for recording. You understand? Now we just need to deal with FL Studio. You get communication with FL Studio. Okay, I'm gonna take the camera. Right, guys. Okay, cool. So now we are in FL Studio. If you want to set up FL Studio, what is very important is to first check out your audio settings. So to be able to do that, you can press F10, right? Which will open your settings MIDI input or output device, right? Or what you can do is go to options and select audio, right? Now, when you press F10, just remember to press on your audio devices or your audio tab, which is here, right? The reason why we go to this page first is to first check out first our sound card, just to make sure that we're using the correct sound card. I'm currently using the Scarlett 2i2 USB sound card. So that means I've connected to the correct sound card. Secondly, you want to check your buffer size, right? When you're checking your buffer size, what you're basically checking is, remember when you're recording, you want to use a low buffer size. When you are mixing, that's when you will target to use a high buffer size. If you record on a high buffer size, there'll be very high latency going on, which can be distractive to a person who is recording or the artist that you are recording. So please make sure that whenever you are recording, you use a low buffer size. How that basically works is you basically are telling, if you say you're using a value of 1024, example, if you're using that as a value, then you're basically telling your computer or FL that use 1024 milliseconds to process the audio information before you send or you play it back to me, right? So that's the latency, because then it's going to take 1024 milliseconds to basically process the audio before it plays it back to you. That's that latency. So you want to target a low buffer size to ensure that you get all the information at the exact time as you are recording it, right? So set it as low as possible before you start hearing clicks and pops, right? 128 is fine depending on your CPU power, and also 512 could be fine, but do test it out and see what works best for you. Then another thing you want to check out is your sample rate. Now, back in the days, we used to use 44.1 kilohertz due to the mere fact that CDs were still popular, right? People were still playing music from CDs. Nowadays, they don't do that anymore. Everybody's using USBs, they're streaming, it's all digital. So in this case, we have then upgraded to 48 kilohertz, which is also an improved way of collecting or for your program to process your samples. You get what I'm saying? As you record them. So using 48 kilohertz is quite precise. So make sure that you set up your session with 48 kilohertz. Even when you export it at 48 kilohertz. Unless if you're planning to load it on the CD and play it somewhere, maybe on a CDJ. CDJs also use USBs now, but maybe you're still old school like that. Then you're gonna have to export it at 44.1 kilohertz. But please try your best to use 48 kilohertz. It would work out very good for you. So once you have set up your audio device and made sure that everything is coming out, your sound card, your buffer size, and your sample rate, you can close this window right here. Then secondly, then we're gonna move to our mixer. Now, this is our mixer window as far as everybody knows, right? Cool. First things first that you are going to set up is your QMix. Now, the main thing is to understand that what is our QMix, right? Our QMix is basically the platform or track that we set up. I'm going to use track number 15, right? Or insert number 15 in this case. I'm going to use track number 15 to set up my QMix. QMix is the platform or track that everything needs to pass through to get to your artist. You get what I'm saying? Who you are recording, right? So it's the channel that you use to take out the information or audio or signals that come from within your Fruity Loops that need to get to your artist's ears. That goes from the instrumental that you have. So all the elements that you have within the instrumental need to go through this channel. If you don't have instrumentals and you're recording from a fresh, clean project, right? That means there's no audio, there's nothing sequenced. For example, let's say maybe the only signal that you're sending to your artist is the one is a click track, so that he can be able to play guitar for you or keyboard according to time, right? Then your click track would have to go through this so it gets to your artist's headphones. And then lastly, whenever you're recording somebody, they want to hear themselves, right? When they're recording, so they can hear if they're missing notes, or if they're singing in key, or if they're singing it correctly, or if they're not singing flat. So then that means their own vocals, right, need to pass through the QMix so that it gets to their headphones. That's the main thing about the QMix. So the function of the QMix is to ensure that everything that your artist needs to hear gets to their ears. So you need to set it up. Now, what's important about the QMix, let me first start by naming this track. And you can press rename, right? You can right click, go to rename color and icon, or you can press F2 as your keyboard shortcut, right? Then there, I'm going to name this as our QMix, right? I want to use a different color. And remember guys, I'm just using insert number 15. You can use any insert that you want to get your QMix to your artist. Now, from the first part of the video where we did studio setup, right? We set out our output out of 3 and 4, out of channel number 3 and 4. Remember, 1 and 2 was for the monitors, right? The output on the sound card that's followed is 3 and 4, right? And then there's 5 and 6, that's another pair. There's 7 and 8, that's another pair. And then there's 9 and 10, right? So what we did is to plug from the sound card into the headphone amp, we use output 3 and 4 from our sound card. So then your QMix, right, is again the channel that you need to set to ensure that it gets to your artist's headphones, right? So when you go set the outputs of your QMix, you don't want it to come out of channel 1 and 2, because if it comes out of 1 and 2, that means it's coming out of your monitors, right? So the other output options that you have were 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, right? Now, because when we set it up in studio, we use channel number or output number 3 and 4 at the back of the sound card. In this case, then we would go to this output section here and set it to output 3 and 4. Obviously, guys, you're not going to see output 3 and 4 here because I'm not using the Sapphire. I am using the Scarlett 2i2. So I'm not recording this from Studio B right now. But do remember that on your QMix, when your QMix is selected, you need to go to the outputs, right? And make sure you select channel number 3 and 4 as your outputs for your QMix. That will ensure that now you've secured communication that needs to go through from your computer to your sound card out of your, so listen very carefully, it's going to go from your computer coming out of 3 and 4 through your sound card out to your headphone amp, from your headphone amp then straight using the return cables through the snake, through another return cable, through their headphones into their ears. So imagine that signal flow going in that manner. So whatever now that I'll be sending within my Fruity Loops or FL session or project, right? So whatever I choose now to send to my QMix will definitely make it to my artist headphones. You get what I'm saying? Because it'll be passing through the QMix that's coming out of channel number 3 and 4 in this section, and that will connect then to the headphone amp, then so on all the way to his headphone or his or her headphone amp, depending on who you're recording. Right, so now once that's sorted, please make sure that you set this up 3 and 4 for QMix. If you used output number 5 and 6, that means then here you would choose 5 and 6. If you use 7 and 8, here you will choose 7 and 8, right? So just make sure that whatever output you plugged your stereo cables out of, right? That means you plugged those stereo cables in that output of your sound card and then took it and connected it to the headphone amp. Whether you choose 5 and 6 or 3 and 4 or 7 and 8, you need to choose that channel. It needs to correlate to this output setting in your mixer so that it comes out of it, basically telling the QMix that you need to basically send out the information that's coming from within FL out of that specific channel. So since we use 3 and 4, we are going to set it to 3 and 4. Like I said, you will not see it here due to the mere fact that I do not have the Sapphire connected. I've got the Scarlett 2i2, and that only just has 2 outputs, which is output 1 and 2. Okay, cool. Now that part is done, right? So our QMix is set up, connected. Now we know that whatever I'm going to set up in here in FL, I will basically hear, all my artists will hear in their headphones, because the signal basically, or the signal has been connected, or the signal path has been connected and has been created. Okay, so now what next would your artist want to hear? So let's say you're starting from a clean canvas, meaning that you don't have any production record done, no MIDI added in, no instruments added in or anything like that. So then your artist or the person that you're recording, let's say, is going to be playing guitar for you according to a click track. So they'll be following the tempo of the song using the click track, right? Just to keep into time. So then if you check, our click track by default comes out of our master channel. So if I play you, just press play, you see right there, our click track is coming out of our master channel, right? So if I then wanted my artist to hear the click track, I have to pass it through what? Yes, through the QMix, because that's the only way, that's the only channel that we've got here that's communicating, let's say, with the outside world. That's communicating with the outside platform of FL, right? Because like I said, QMix goes out of channel 3 and 4, which we have set up connecting from the outside, the backside of the sound card 3 and 4 straight into our headphone amp, and that goes straight to the artist. So you need to make sure that this click track that's coming out of here basically comes out of your Q-Mix channel. Now, how do you do that? Again, you can go to options, go to audio settings, or you can go and press F10 on your keyboard and then go to the audio tab, right? On your audio tab, you're going to run into this platform here called the preview mixer track, right? That one you're going to set to whatever channel you have set to be your Q-Mix. I've chosen channel number 15. If you chose number 16 or you chose number 2 to be your Q-Mix, where you have set your output to 3 and 4, right? That means then in that case, this number has to correlate to your Q-Mix channel, right? So my Q-Mix channel is number 15. So I'm going to set this to number 15. Then I'm going to close this dialog box and I'm going to play you my click track and you'll see it should come out of our Q-Mix. Right. So now I am sure that my artist will be able to hear my Q-Mix. You get what I'm saying? They will be able to hear, my click track. So then when we say record, they will be able to play alongside my click track. Now, another scenario. Let's say you have produced an instrumental. I'm going to quickly make just a little drum kit here. Just quickly sequence the drum kit. There we go. Let me just add that, sorry. Then I'm going to put a clap here. Right, let's just listen to that. Add that in. Cool. So I've created a quick drum kit here, and then I'm going to route all these channels here into my mixer. So I'm going to route that, and I'm going to say route selected channels starting from this track. So I'm going to route that. As you can see, there's my kick, clap, hat, and snare, right? So if I play them, I'm going to switch off my click track for now, right? As you can see, they are coming out of channel number 1, 2, 3, and 4 within my FL Studio. Now the problem is, let's say now this is your instrumental as a whole. Right, as you can see here, let's say this is your instrumental as a whole, and this needs to get to your artist so they can be able to start playing bass guitar alongside, or be able to start rapping or singing according to what you've sequenced, right? Now the problem is when I'm playing this, right, as you can see on my Q-Mix, nothing is coming out. What does that mean for in this case? That means my artist is not hearing this kick, clap, hi-hat, and snare, which is a problem, because how are they going to be in the booth and be able to record if they can't hear the instrumental that they're recording to? So what does that mean? That means we have to route these 4 instruments here to our Q-Mix, right? Now, how do we do that? Very simple. I'm going to first command and click and drag to select the 4 instruments that I want to use, right? That I want to send to my artist's headphones. Then what I'm going to do is right click, right? And I'm going to say route to this track. Bam, right? Once I've routed to this track, as you can see, a line from here tells you all the way to this area here, you have routed your kick. But you also see a line that brings it this way. Now, what this tells you is that this is going to my master track, right? That's why you can hear it in your monitors. You get what I'm saying? And then this tells you that it is going to my Q-Mix. So currently, that means it is getting to my artist's headphones. You get what I'm saying? Or it is coming out of channel number 3 and 4, going through my headphone amp to get to my artist's headphones. And if you check the clap track, also same thing, going to the Q-Mix and the master channel. The hi-hat is Q-Mix and master channel. Then lastly, snare goes to the Q-Mix and then the master channel. So now if I play my instrumental or if I play my instrumental, you should see it coming out of here. And I'll start muting them one by one, meaning that you should start seeing them disappear, and then you should get silence when they're all muted, meaning that nothing should come in from here, right? And nothing should come in, come out of the master also, because I'm muting. as you can see. Okay guys, so as you can see that basically all our tracks now or instrumentals are coming out of our Q mix. As I muted them one by one, the only thing that's coming out now is our kick, as you can tell. Right, that means then my artist is definitely receiving my kick, and then as I bring back everything else, now we are sure, because it's passing through our Q mix, that our artist is hearing our instrumental as a whole. So now we've basically been able to route our click track to the artist, and then we've been able to route our instrumental to the artist. Now would be a good time to basically start setting up for vocal recording. Now, as you can remember in studio, what we did was set up our recording, or plug in our microphone recording into channel number 1, right? I'm also going to do the same here, right? And you might actually hear me come a bit doubled. That's due to the mere fact, the reason why I would sound a bit kind of phased out within the recording or within this video is because I'm using the same mic to record what I'm saying to you here, right? I'm using the same mic to record what I'm saying to here to also record in FL. So I'm using the same channel. So if I come out double, don't worry. It's just because I'm just using the same channel on 2 different platforms, right? But if I don't, then that's fine. Okay, cool. So now would be a good time then to start setting up our vocal, because now we're sure that our instrumental comes out into our master, right? So our instrumental comes out of a master, so I can hear it through the monitors now, and also my artist can hear it through the Q mix on his headphones or his or her headphones in the booth, right? And then another thing that we've also set up is the click track. If I'm just gonna put it on right there, that's now also coming out of the monitors, so I can basically monitor the artist if they're performing according to time, and also it's coming out of the Q mix. That means my artist is basically hearing me through, or hearing the click track through the Q mix, right? Okay, cool. So let's set up a vocal track for our artist. So I'm going to go to channel number 10. That's the channel I'm going to use to basically record vocals. In this case, I'll be recording myself, right? Now, what's important here is, again, to understand the following, right? Once you've chosen the vocal track, let me first start by setting it up. Again, I'm going to go F2, right? I'm going to call that Vox, Vox, and then I'm going to choose blue, or whatever they call medium blue, that's what they call it in this case, as my color for my vocal track, right? So that's the track I'm going to use to record my vocals in. Now, what I want you guys to now grasp is that whenever, right, now, because you have to choose an input for your vocal channel. So before I choose my input, before it starts doubling me and so on, I want to explain this to you. Whenever you are recording a microphone, right? So if you're recording a microphone, you need to ensure that you use a mono channel, right? A mono channel, not a stereo channel, but a mono channel. This is because microphones take in mono signal, right? XLRs transfer mono signal. You get what I'm saying? So whenever you are recording a microphone, you need to make sure that you're using a mono channel. There are cases when you are recording an instrument where you can use a stereo channel, right? For example, if you're recording a keyboard, like an electronic keyboard that you have to plug in actual fact, or a hardware synthesizer, those supply you with 2 outputs which are mono, right? But can then be recorded as 1 stereo channel. If that's the case, you can use the input channel 1 and 2. You get what I'm saying? But in this case, what I would generally advise people whenever they're recording piano, record using 2 mono channels and just pan the other one. Let's say maybe I'm recording a keyboard, right? And keyboard at the back, you'll always see will have a left output and a right output, meaning that you can record 2 channels at once. What I generally advise people is that whenever you're recording things like a keyboard that allows you to record in stereo by using 2 mono channels, use 2 mono channels to record the stereo or the stereo information. Basically, that means one channel, your left hand side, will come in, let's say channel number 11, and you pan that to the left, right? And then the other channel will come into your other channel number 12, and you pan that to your right. You get what I'm saying? So this is due to the mere fact that once you've recorded these items as mono channels, what you're doing for yourself is also giving yourself the ability to mess with them separately when it comes to mixing. This becomes very important when you want to mess with, let's say the stereo width, you understand? And you do not have an MS, which is a mid-side plugin that can basically affect the sides of your mix, or whenever you've got stereo signal or stereo audio information that can affect the sides of your track that you're trying to affect, right? So if you now have a left mono channel and a right mono channel that contains information coming from the same instrument, you get what I'm saying? If you have that connected into 2 mono channels, you can now mess with the left hand side separately without affecting the right hand side, especially if you do not have mid-side plugins, maybe let's say a mid-side EQ or a mid-side multi-pack compressor. You get what I'm saying? So now you can basically affect an effect or affect a channel as on its own, but still kind of messing with how they react together or work together as a stereo channel when it's 2 mono channels put together. So please remember that one way you can, you are totally allowed to record a piano in stereo. Nothing prevents you from that. My advice is record that piano using 2 mono inputs so that you can have better control in your mixing. You get what I'm saying? It always just works better when you've got better control within your mix. You just want that. So let's go back to our vocal track, right? I'm going to set it to channel number 1, right? So now I'm coming in double. I can hear myself on the headphones. Okay, cool. Now, so I've basically now set up my input. As you can see, it's coming out of this channel number 10 here as I speak. You can also see audio signal coming through channel number 10, right? So now you know that there's input coming from the microphone, right? But now another important thing is that my artist needs to be able to hear themselves, which is the most important thing that an artist wants to go through, because they want to hear themselves if they're singing flat, if they're missing notes, like I mentioned earlier on. So what are we going to do to make sure that our artist can hear themselves, right? Yes, pass it through into the QMix. Remember, QMix is the platform that will allow all the information contained in our session to make it through our artist's headphones. So what do? While my Vox is basically selected, I can then just click on this platform right here where we call enable send from Vox to QMix. Right now it is coming through my QMix. You get what I'm saying? So now I've got it through my Vox going through my QMix. So now my artist can hear the kick, clap, hat, and snare. They can hear the click track, and they can hear their own vocals, and generally our setup is done within FL Studio, meaning that at this point in time they can start recording. Right? Cool. Now we're going to go to our playlist window. Right? I'm just going to minimize our playlist window. So I'm also going to bring back my my mixer window. Right? I'm just going to detach it. Just make sure that it's detached from the platform. Let me just find that setting. Hey, I should have that setting for detached. Okay, now I can't see it. because I want to prevent my window from going backwards. It should be somewhere here, but it's not showing up for some reason, which is weird. Oh, there we go. Found it. Okay, cool. So now, here's another important thing when you are recording vocals, right? Well, first, what I want to show you guys, let's first set up markers. Now how you do that is basically, let me first sequence my drum kit. So I'm going to put my drum kit in pattern 1. I'm going to paint it in, right? And then I'm going to use bar number 5, the beginning of bar number 5. I'm going to use that as my verse. So I'm going to go Alt T, which is going to allow me to create a marker. So I'm going to say verse there, verse 1, and then I'm going to press enter. No. Then I'm going to go and use bar number 9 as my chorus. So that's another shortcut, Alt T, to add the marker, and then I'm going to call it chorus. Cool, right? Now I want to show you guys how to set up punch in and punch out. Now here's one thing to remember in this case. You want to set up your punch in and punch out just before your verse begins, and just that's your punch in, and then your punch out just after your chorus. So I'm going to use bar number 10 to set up my punch out. Another way you can add a marker is by right clicking on the area, right, and then select add marker, and then I'm going to call that P out for punch out, right? And then I'm going to go to bar number 4, beginning of bar number 4, right click on my timeline like I did there. So I'm going to right click on my timeline, and I'm going to add marker again, and I'm going to say P in for punch in, right? Now why am I setting it up here, right? Because if my vocalist maybe tends to start recording right before my verse starts, so before the verse section, maybe they say something in this area here before my verse starts, just to hypen up, or maybe it's just part of the verse that it starts before the actual bar where we've marked it as a verse. We want to make sure we don't miss that information, right, that gets recorded. And now why I set up my punch out after my chorus, also for the same reason. If they do tend to maybe stretch their last note, maybe they go going out of my chorus, right, then I want to make sure that I also am able to capture that information and I do not miss it. Remember, punch in will ensure that by the time the cursor or playback point or playback my playback line, this forgot the name of this thing now, my playback cursor, right? So this is to ensure that by the time my playback cursor reaches here on my P in, it will start recording, and as soon as it reaches here on my P out, it will stop recording. So that's what punch in and punch out do. Punch in ensures that it starts recording from that point, which in this case is bar number 4. Punch out will ensure that by the time it reaches bar number 10, it stops recording. But you need to set that within FL. So I'm going to go to my P in marker. I'm going to right click on it, and then I'm going to select punch in. Then I'm going to go to my P out marker, and I'm going to select punch out. So you right click on it and you get those options. So now Fruity Loops or FL Studio is set up for recording, right? So now what I'm going to do is maybe sing something alongside with the beat. You never know. We'll figure out something right there. I'm going to now explain another important factor to remember. Whenever you're going to go press that record button, you need to make sure that the channel that you want to record your vocal in our case it's Vox, right, is selected, right? You do not want to miss that, because if you press record and you've selected channel number 1, which has got our kick, then what FL is going to do is going to start recording using channel number 1. That's what you want to try avoid, because you've set up channel number 10, which is our Vox, as the platform to record or the insert to use, and you've also set up an input already, right? You need to make sure, right, that you basically have that channel that you've set up selected before you press the record button. Do remember that, as that is quite vital information, right? Now, one part that I almost forgot to teach you guys is after setting up your input, you need to basically change this into pre, right? Now, what pre does, it stands for pre-fader. As you could see before I pressed it, it was post. As you can see there, I'm going to move my mouse so you can see it was post there, and then you change it into pre. So pre basically stands for pre-fader. That means before fader. When it's in post, that means after fader. So how that helps is when it's in pre, now let's say now I'm in the recording control room, right, listening to my artist, and I feel like he's kind of too loud, right, from my side. I can then go reduce his level, 1 2 1 2 1 2, right? I can then go reduce his level without actually affecting what he is hearing. You get what I'm saying? Then if I go post, then I reduce his level, 1 2 1 2. As you can hear, he starts getting affected. You get what I'm saying? So by pressing pre, you are making sure that by reducing his level, right, you are not affecting him and what he's hearing, and you can raise his level up and down like this so it gets to his ears using your send level, right? Or you can reduce his level, whatever he's hearing, by reducing it here, right, without actually affecting him. So I'm just going to Alt-T that. Okay, cool. Now let us start recording our vocal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my record button. You're going to get this option right here, dialog box, recording. It says, what would you like to record? Now our aim is to record audio, and we want to record in our playlist. Now I do understand that most people choose to record within their Edison. Let me tell you something about recording in Edison. You want to try and avoid that, because when you're recording an artist, you want to take as many takes as possible within your studio session. What I usually do per section, I take about 4 to 8 takes, depending on how well the artist has been performing within each take. This ensures that by the time I get to the editing stage of my recording, right, or the editing stage of my production, I've got different recordings that I can use to basically comp edit, which is the process of selecting the best recorded parts and making or combining them into one good recording. You get what I'm saying? So that ensures that if he has made mistakes in any form of way, which we'll discuss by the time we get to editing, then I can correct them by comp editing and removing the ones that I feel like do not actually serve best for the performance of the artist. So you do want to take multiple takes, and the best way to go about doing so is doing it via the playlist. So then I'm going to say audio into playlist as an audio clip, right? Then I'm going to press record. See, now our problem lies here. As you could see, I did not select this as my input. The last thing that I used was my Q mix as my input. So I'm going to have now to stop that recording before it starts. I'm going to go none there, right? I'm going to select my track, which is Vox again. Then I'm going to go record, right? Then I'm going to click on audio input the playlist as an audio clip. One, two. As you can hear, I'm recording now over my drum kit. As you can hear, I'm recording now over my drum kit. As you can hear, then it stops. You understand? Cool. Then I can take another take if I want to by selecting my next track, right? And if I want to record, it's brought me back to where I started, right? I can click record again and let's go. Yeah. As you can hear, I'm recording over as you can hear. I'm recording now. I'm recording over my drum kit. As you can hear, I'm recording my drum kit. Yeah. You get? Now we've got 2 recordings, and now if you noticed, I had a timing mistake there and a timing mistake here, and I can basically start comp editing if I want to, right? Nice thing about FL is that the channel that you're recording in, it starts associating it with the color. So now you can easily identify, especially if you've got, let's say, a recording using channel number 9, a recording using channel number 10. Now you know which recording belongs to which and which channel your audio track is routed to automatically after you're done recording. And that basically now completes the recording section of our class. You get what I'm saying? Now you are able to record within FL and record in studio. Now, what I do want to also show you is this little cute plugin here that you can also use as to set up pre-fader, so on, and QMix, right? Which is called Fruity Send. So let me just look for Fruity Send. Right now, Fruity Send, just hold on. Okay, now I've set up Fruity Send here because I want to send this again to my channel. Let's just go here, and I'm going to send it to my Q mix, right? 1 2 1 2. So now if I reduce my volume this side, you get what I'm saying? I am not affecting his volume also. He can basically hear themselves as is, right? Right. 1 2. Now I've reduced the vocal for myself, right? And they still are getting the same signal as I'm sending it through. You get what I'm saying? You see that? It's still coming through the QMix. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this plugin here is a plugin that you can basically apply into your instrument channels. In the case, maybe if the kick is too loud, the clap is too loud, and you're not using pre or post fader, then, or you're not using pre-fader, you can then set up the Fruity Send, right? Meaning that you can reduce, as you can see now, I'm coming back. So that means I can reduce the volume of the kick, clap, hi-hat. If I've set it up, obviously I need to make sure that I insert the send, the Fruity Send within my kick, clap, and hat and snare platform, right? Or snare tracks, right? So now I can reduce the kick for myself within the control room, right? And then they on their side are still not affected by the signal that's coming to them. So they're still hearing the kick at the level that they love, and they're still hearing the clap, hat, snare. You can also do the same thing for the vocal, right? So there we go, right? And then I've removed it. There you go. So now it's not coming through my Vox. Now it is coming through the vocal channel, and now you can basically hear it. 1 2. You can basically hear it within the control room. When I remove it like this, only the artist is hearing the vocal, their own vocal. Cool. Now, we're going to move on to the next section of the song, right? I mean, the next section of recording of this video, and that is the case of applying edits and basically new tone and it's new tone vocal decks onto your audio tracks that you've recorded. And for that, I'm going to open another FL session where I basically did do a recording, and now I'm going to show you how new tone works, right? Okay guys, see you in the next FL session. Yeah, let's just put it that way. Right guys, so we are back now in another session. We are going to jump into basically doing vocal processing. That's what we're going to do with in this section of the video. So I've got a session that I had done a couple of weeks ago where I recorded myself. Please do not mind the singing, it really does suck, but I kind of built a bit of like a basic audio track, a basic drum kit track, and then I'd recorded some vocals, and it basically sounds like this. Every day, every day, yeah man, I thought it was a nice jam. As much as I'm not a good singer and stuff, took about 15 minutes to kind of build this real quick. A little drum kit, recorded myself a couple of times. As you can see, as I mentioned earlier on, that when you record, you want to take as many takes as possible because your vocalist will make mistakes. But we'll get to that when we get to the editing part. Let's first start by fixing what I am doing here, because yes, my singing is out of key. When you listen to this, you get what I'm saying? It really doesn't sound like it's really sitting well and stuff. So we're going to apply a bit of pitch fixing. Maybe we'll take it to an extreme point and actually auto-tune it, which is what you would hear on T-Pain or any other recent artist. And actually nowadays, everybody's on auto-tune. So what we're going to do is double click on this track right here. Another way you can access it, to open the track sampler, I'm just going to have my channel rack open there. And then you can see all the audio tracks. Oh, look at that. And then you can see all the audio tracks. Let me just extend that on its size. There we go. You're going to see all the audio tracks that we have recorded on. So basically what I want you guys to notice, that by clicking on a certain channel, right, for example, a certain audio clip, right, it will automatically select it on your channel rack. So if I click on this clip, it will select the audio clip associated to this track here on the channel rack, and I click on this. As you can see, it's doing the same. So as the more I click, I'm keeping on selecting different ones. So that's another way you can basically use the clip selection by clicking on it, to just be able to identify and be able to reach your Fruity Sampler by clicking on this track and having access to it here, right? This is the audio that you want to mess with. So you're going to go to this area here, this wave area here. You're going to right click, and then you're going to say edit in pitch corrector, right? And that will analyze and open in new tone, right? Under new tone is now what we have as our vocal. I can press play here, and as soon as I'm playing exactly that vocal that I had recorded. Now I want to pitch fix this vocal a bit, and in the process of doing so, I'm going to be showing you guys the different parameters that exist within NuTone. Quite a straightforward plugin that you can use to auto-tune if you want to, or pitch fix anybody who sings out of key. So whenever you submit your assignment, I do not expect you to submit someone who's singing out of key, because you've got NuTone, which gives you the ability to create an industry standard track with, with someone not singing out of key, which is the most obvious thing, right? Cool. So you get a couple of parameters that you have here. We've got this tool here that you can use to basically slice. I'm going to click on it to basically slice within your audio. I'm just going to zoom in so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Let's zoom in. Let's make that bigger. And I'm going to then zoom in there too. So we make that bigger. So if I come with the slice tool here, I can just click here, and then you can see it cut through there. I can also click here, and you can see it cut through there. That basically gives you the ability to slice through those clips that you are seeing here, or the note selections, right, that you are seeing here, so that you can move them up or down, or to wherever you want to move them whenever you are pitching, right? What I also want you to notice that what FL does, which is quite cool, as you can see these orange patches here on NuTone. Basically, this is where my notes are supposed to be sitting. As you can see, it's down here, it's outlined in orange, but then there's this orange feel that's going here, the color fill that's going on here, and this is where basically FL says it should be basically sitting. Now you'll see where that applies as we move along, but let me show you just other other settings that are available or parameters that you can use on u-tone to edit your vocals, right? So then you've got advanced settings. What advanced settings does is, if you hover over this area here, you can basically then see that you can alter the volume if you want to, right? Or alter the volume of the track that you are using, or you can alter the variation in depth. You understand? It's really up to you what you want to do. You get what I'm saying? So you can alter the different sections of the song using advanced tools, right? But if you want to do just basic level, basic pitch fixing, that is straightforward. For example, I mean, I wasn't that much off key, so I can fix a couple of things, quite simpler more than anything. But I will show you as we get to the parameters that are up here, which apply globally on your new tone. Then the next one that you have in this case is this slave playback to host. Mainly what this option does when you've got it enabled, basically allows you to control new tone playback based on your transport window, which is here, which basically is the function for this will basically apply as to when you want to audition and hear what you are doing here in the context of the song. So now I'm going to mute this channel right here, right? Reason why I'm muting this channel is because now whenever I play back using play, right, I'll be hearing what I'm doing or hearing what I'm editing or pitch fixing through new tone. Remember, it's being analyzed, so what you are playing now is playing the audio that you've loaded in new tone. You need to understand that, right? So then I can now, because I've got this plug in this parameter here enabled, I can then now easily audition while I pitch fix, which means then I can be able to tell what I am doing is working well, if what I'm doing is working well with the production that I've produced, or with the beat that I've produced, or with the rest of the track, or with the other elements contained in the track, right? And then the last one, which is here, is the scroll to follow cursor. So basically the function for this is basically to allow new tone to scroll as you play back, you understand, which makes it easier for you to find a problematic spot. For example, if I press play every day, it's gonna start scrolling, you see. So now let's say I find a mistake there, you get what I'm saying. Now I know where I found the mistake, I can go to it and then fix it and then proceed in playing from there. Or what you can do, obviously, as you can see, it jumps backwards. You might just want to pause it when it gets there. Instead of pressing stop, you will just press pause. I'll show you now. So it scrolls, I find a problem, I pause, I fix it, and then I play. Find a problem, pause again, fix it, and then I can go and stop, and that will basically then take it to where I started. You get what I'm saying? So that is basically what this parameter does here. It scrolls and follows your cursor, right? So you can easily be able to spot where you heard the mistake by pausing, fixing, and continue, which makes it for quite good, quick pitch correcting throughout the vocal, especially if you're dealing with songs that are like 3 minutes long, 2 minutes long, right? You want to work right through, get that vocal done, and go to the next one, right? But I am going to deactivate it now because I want us to just concentrate on a specific section, which is here now when it comes to our global settings, right? Now, our global parameters, which are these parameters right here, you've got center, variation, and trans. As much as they call it trans, it stands for short for transition, right? Now, center in this case basically centers, right? Again, earlier on, I mentioned these colored areas here, right? Let me just switch off my advanced. Okay, I mentioned this colored area here, that colored area here. You see that orange color that's here, right? That feel that's going on here. Basically, FL is telling me that if you are singing properly on key, your vocal would be sitting in those areas, right? How you then get that right, so what it does is, let me first start by saying this: center, variation, and trans are global parameters, meaning that whatever I do here will basically apply to every single note or section or audio signal that is on new tone. You understand? As you can see now here, if I go to center, notice what happens to the notes, right? And how they move towards the orange area. So it basically quantizes them to the pitch of your note, or to the pitch of the keyboard. You understand? So it's like quantizing, but basically quantizing pitch. So if I move center, notice to what happens to all of my notes. As you can see, all of my pitches now, they are all moving into the note, right? Which in sense can then improve the singing in terms of just keeping on key without deviating or detuning from it. So now if I play it, yes, in some cases I will sound off key because I haven't corrected the notes individually. What I've done is globally just quantize them to the closest pitch. So when I play it now, every day, you understand? In comparison to when I had it on center, every day, when I had center on 0, every day, you get what I'm saying? So now it sounds a bit better. It sounds a bit on key, right? Okay. Another thing that I want to show you is the variation. Variation basically deals with vibrato. If you've noticed, if you see these lines here, they basically represent the vibrato that you are singing in, right? So if I reduce variation, these lines become more straight, as you can see them, and that is likely to remove any vibrato. When you are doing that, that's when you are basically now targeting to also auto-tune. Again, you notice without selecting any notes here, what has happened is that it started applying it on all notes. That is because, again, these three parameters here are global parameters, meaning that they apply to all of the nodes or pitches that actually exist within my new tone, right? So if I play now with variation on 0, that means no vibrato. It's basically a flat transition, so you'll hear that every day. You get what I'm saying? In comparison to when I max it out, every day. You get? So variation that would kind of also help you in terms of trying to keep the performance natural. If you are targeting from a natural performance, then you do want to keep this at about 100%. If you are targeting auto-tune type of feel, then you do want to bring it down to 0. And if you really want to mess up the artist's career, you can push it up to a 200 value in terms of your parameter here. That is 200 right there, right? So for my case, because I want to auto-tune myself, I'm going to put myself on variation 0, right? Okay, then transition. Transition basically deals with the transition that happens from pitch to pitch. As you can see from here to this note here, there is a transition. Let me just zoom in here. Further. Right? As you can see from this pitch to this pitch here, there is a transition line going down here, right? Also, from this pitch coming up from there to here, there's a transition line going all the way here. So then if I reduce it, I am basically now removing those transition lines, right? Ensuring now it's just going to jump from note to note. Every day. Again, this is one of the settings that actually do affect if you are auto-tuning or not. If I put it on 0, it will sound more than auto-tune. If I then put it on full 100%, in this case, it will then sound at least much more natural because you are keeping the transitions, the natural transitions that are happening from pitch to pitch. So now I'm going to do a bit of pitch fixing or basically shifting notes or pitch correction, right? For example, like here, I can literally hear that I'm not singing according to key. So I can take that. You need to notice now, you need to see a black arrow, as you can see there, right? And when I move in, let me take it to maybe something a bit larger so you can see. You see that black arrow there? Once you get the black arrow here, you can move the selected note up or down. So I can push it up, right? Like this one, because I want it up there. Right? So here it's every day. So I want to keep it on my C sharp. Every day. So that allows me to bring it back here on my G. So that works, right? And I still stay on my G here, and I still stay on my, come on. You see, now that is one of the many things that kind of frustrate me about this plugin. So I'm just gonna have to move backwards just to make sure that I haven't messed up anything. I am gonna just undo, edit, undo, right? Just to see if it hasn't messed up anything there. Push that up, and then let's listen to it now. Every day, nah. Let's hear it now. You get, okay. Right, that's where I want it. Let's just push this one up also. Right, let's listen to it now. Right, so now let's listen to it in the context of the instrumental. Again, I need to make sure that slave playback host is on, right? And then I'm just going to place it on channel number 4 on my instrumental. Not channel number 4, sorry, on bar number 4, and then I'll play it from there. Every day. Again, this must be muted. Every day. You hear that? Now there's a better improvement in terms of my performance if I am targeting auto-tune. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you use NuTone, right? After you've done and you've pitch fixed basically everything within that audio clip, let me just do this. After you've pitch fixed everything in the audio clip and you're happy with your auto tune and you've auditioned it and you're sure that it sits well, you can come to this button right here, which basically says send to playlist. So that means that what FL will do then in this case will send everything that's here auto-tuned, processed, and created as a new audio clip. So you will not actually need your original audio clip if you're not going to be using it. You still have your original audio clip, which is this one. As you guys noticed when we did it earlier, we selected this one. But now when I click here on send to playlist, it will create a new processed auto tune that has gone through the NuTone. So I'm going to click on this I'm going to click on send to playlist, which is this button here. And as you can see here, this is where my vocal track is now auto-tuned and ready to be heard. So I'm just going to raise its level so you can be able to hear how it sounds. Let's go now. Every day. Basically, that's about it. You get what I'm saying? And that's how you get to use NuTone, right? Now, next plugin I want to show you guys is Vocodex. Remember now, if you guys know Daft Punk, they have this very nice effect that they've got going on. I'm going to show you how to basically induce that effect within FL Studio. So now, as far as I can check, this channel is routed to channel number 15. I practically do not want that. So I'm going to make sure that it's selected right within my channel rack. Let's make sure of that. There we go. And then I'm going to go to my mixer channel. When I get to my mixer channel, I'm just going to connect it or route it to channel number 8, right? Now we're going to use Vocodex to add some nice cool effects on it that you can apply on your own vocals. How you do that basically is create another channel. I'm going to be on 9. I'm going to press F2. I'm going to call that Vocodex. Obviously, I do not want that C there. Let's use orange for this one. Right? And then I'm going to route my audio track, now, the one that's got my everyday auto tune, right? And I'm going to route it into my vocal decks channel, right? As you can see, I'm sending it through here. So it's going to my vocal decks channel and it's going to my master, right? Now, what I'm going to do on my vocal decks channel, right, is load vocal decks. Should be under MISC. So let's look for MISC. And there is vocal decks right there, right? My vocal decks plugin is just at the back of my mixer now because I've detached my mixer from this platform, right? Here's my vocal decks plugin. I'm just going to hide my mixer for a little while, right? When I leave that there so I can be able to find it, right? And then now what I want to do, this is the plugin you guys can use to add some cool effects. I'm just going to change a couple of parameters here. For example, I'm going to choose song.
Vocodex.
Yes, as you can hear, Vocodex just came alive. And I'm just going to change the note that I have here. Now, you also can, if you want to, route a carrier that will affect your, what do you call this thing? That will affect your vocal. So if you want to use, let's say, maybe a MIDI notes to kind of direct how it should sing according to the effects that you're applying using vocal decks, right? You can then route a carrier. For example, if I wanted to use boop bass to do that, I would select boop bass, right? I would then take it to my mixer. Just hold on. Let me just open my mixer. And then let's use channel number 7. Right click and route to this channel, right? And then I can use now my boop bass, but I need to ensure that my boop bass also goes through my vocal decks channel. So I'll bring it in like that, right? Then I'm just going to minimize my mixer. Then when I go to my vocal decks channel, channel number 1 would be then my in terms of this modulator here, it would be my vocal, right? So I can go to my vocal and select, as you can see, that vocal option there. And then as my carrier, I would use then my boop bass. And my boop bass then would control what's going on in terms of notes and everything when it comes to my, what do we call this? When it comes to my effects that I'm applying, right? So now I am ready to apply my vocal decks into my track, basically, right? So I'm going to play my vocals now, and they should be coming through my vocal decks channel. If I go to my mixer again, they should be coming through my vocal decks channel. I'm just going to bring that down and just reduce our mixer size here so that we can be able to see both of these on screen. Maybe I can just reduce it from the side because we just need to concentrate on these tracks here. And push that there. Then take my vocal decks and just push it to the side here. I'm going to close now my channel rec. Okay, cool. So now what should happen when I play it, I should hear somewhat of a vocal effect being applied on my vocal, my auto-tuned vocal, which is that one here. Listen now.
Every day. Every day.
As you could hear there, you could hear some Daft Punk sounds being actually coming through and popping through your track. You get what I'm saying? So those are nice, cool effects that you can apply using different channels that you can basically play around with. I mean, different processing plugins that you can play around with to process your vocals. You understand? And that can be very nice to add into your production. You can go around and experiment with this plugin. It is on page number, let me just check for you. It is on page number 270 of your test book, right? It is there on page number 270 on your test book with the project associated with it and with a detailed explanation of each of the parameters that have been made available on your vocal decks. And you can basically go mess around with it, see what else you can do with it that is cool for even a bridge section of your song. Okay, so that closes that allows us now to reach the next point, which is our editing part of processing vocals. Now, obviously, I've spoken about when you record, try take more than one take of your from the performance of your artist, right? Try 4 to 8 per section. Obviously, time does become a factor. If you know that you've got about 2 hours in studio, 6 is enough. You get what I'm saying? Per section. You get what I'm saying? If you've got 2 hours in studio, you can push 6 vocals per section if your artist is ready. You don't want them to get there and start preparing themselves when they are within studio. You want them to start preparing themselves when they are before they get to the studio session, and then when they get to the studio session, they get there, record the parts, and then you've got the best parts that are ready to be edited in. So in editing, they are basically 3 forms of editing. There is selective, corrective, and then there is, let me see, so it's selective, corrective, and then there's creative, right? For the cases of selective now would apply in terms of comp editing, like I said. So if you've got many takes within your session that you've taken, selective editing would be then picking the best takes and applying them to create one good take. That's when you'd come here, use your slicer tool, for example, right? And slice certain parts of your vocal, right, that you like, after obviously auditioning each. So if I wanted to just make sure that I pick the best part out of these ones here, I would then go listen to them one by one. Out of that, pick the best one. Let's say maybe it's this one. And then I would go slice it separately and then have a different track. And probably on this track, let's just color this track. Let's say rename this track, right? I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to choose green, and I'm going to say in terms of the color, and then I'm going to call it let's call it original original Vox, right? And then I'm going to press enter, right? Now I can take this part and then include it here, right? And then if I liked another part from this section here, I can go back to my slicer tool again, right? And then select it, the part that I like, right? And that will become now the second part that I enjoyed in the song, and I'll include it there. So on and so on and so on. And that's how comp editing is done. Basically putting all those specific parts that make up a good performance as a whole, you understand, as a whole, as one unit, good, and make it sound good, you understand? So it's one good performance going from the start to the end, because you picked the best parts. But you need to ensure that the best parts you pick are also cohesive, meaning that they can work well together. So you don't find maybe one singing right into the other, you understand? That's another thing. So that's a process of selective editing. Then you get corrective editing. Now, corrective editing would be things like, in this case, it would be things like pitch fixing. You get what I'm saying? So if I sang off key, for example, then you would pitch shift or pitch correct, you understand, my vocals using new tone and put it basically in the right place. That is a form of fixing. Another thing that you can call is the performance energy that you need to look out whenever you're dealing with corrective editing. What you look at is the performance energy. The performance energy now would be the case that does what my artist is doing in terms of performing for the song or on the instrumental, are they doing a good enough job? Does it match up with what the instrumental is doing? Because, for example, let's say this is a busy section of the instrumental. Is my artist applying the energy that exposes the energeticness of this section of the instrumental? You get what I'm saying? And then you've got intonation. Now, intonation would apply, is the singing in pitch, you understand? So you take those into consideration. Like I said, pitch fixing is a nice way to look at it. Another thing you can look at is timing. Remember, you're doing corrective editing. Now, timing I would usually try catch on when I am in the studio. You get what I'm saying? When I'm recording the artist. But because you've got many takes that you've taken, right? There are times where you'll catch him. Maybe let's say you missed it, right? And stuff. So there are times where you'd catch them in the recording. There are times where you wouldn't catch them in the recording. So timing then now, the way to fix it, if maybe you didn't catch it in the recording, is using comp editing, because now there are other takes that you have as options where they sang on time, and then you chose the best part where he performed very well on that section, and you added it to the final the final track or the original Vox, where all the best takes have been placed together. And that's how you fix certain problems like timing. Then errors. Errors then is also something that you consider. Things like missing words, you get what I'm saying? Or maybe if there are sections where they just did not sing the word clearly enough, like you literally cannot hear what the person is saying, or they mumbled some words. Those again can be sorted out by comp editing, because you've got other takes that you can use to replace that mistake. Right? Noise. That's another way of corrective editing, where basically you are removing unwanted noise. You get what I'm saying? Which is another very important thing that I might have actually forgotten to mention. If I'm not sure, let's just go back to our mixer. I do want to just state this now when it comes to noise, which now is a nice way to segue into it anyway when it comes to this part. So you get noise in two forms. You can get noise maybe during the recording process, where you hear a dog barking or a car passing or a truck passing or a taxi hooting, because we live in South Africa and stuff like that. You'll hear a taxi hooting a lot, right? So that can get caught into your mic. Now I understand, and now understand this. When you've recorded many takes, you can replace that through comp editing. When you haven't recorded many takes, you're kind of stuck with that recording, especially if it's caught in at the same time when your vocalist is singing. This is why you need to take many takes when you're recording a vocal, so you can ensure that it's as perfect as possible. You get what I'm saying? No hooting. You've never heard someone on a professional standard track where there's this hooting, a literal hooting attached to the vocal track. If they do add it in, it's a case of it's an effect. Maybe someone is rapping about a taxi or something and they want to use the effect as to drive in the idea. Then that's when it's understandable. But you hardly hear an industry standard song having weird sounds or random sounds going on at the background. Now, another part of noise that you need to pay attention to is the noise to signal ratio. Now, guys, when you record, you have a meter, right? When you're recording your vocals, you have a meter here. This meter here, which is current, basically deals with the meter for the selected track. For example, if I play my vocal, for example, right now I've selected my vocal track, right? If I play from here, what you are seeing here, right, on the current meter is showing you the meter of the selected channel. So if I then go to channel number 11, there should be nothing that comes out of here, because I have no instrument or audio that is associated with this one. But if I go to boop bass and I select boop bass, right, now that's basically how you'll know which track is showing up in your current. Now, going to our noise to signal level. Now, whenever you are recording, what the book says and what you should aim for is the -18 to negative 12 area. So that is this area here, negative 18. As you can see, I'm going to move my mouse, just look there. There you can see negative 18 to the negative 12 area, right? Those are the platform, those the meter levels you want to make sure that you stick in, right? As soon as you go above negative 12, you are messing with fire a bit, right? You just need to be very careful with that. Now, between the negative 18 area and negative 12, what I would tell you to do is try target to be as close as possible to negative 12. Yeah? So try target as close as possible to be on negative 12. Reason being, right? There is cases where you can record vocals to, let's say, too low. You understand? Now, how this affects you is that whenever you are recording something, guys, there is some level of noise going on within your machinery, which does get caught into your audio signal, right? So the higher the difference is between the noise level and the signal, right, the better when you need to apply plugins like compression or any dynamic plugins that bring up your vocals, right? So if your vocal or if your noise to signal ratio is literally very low, you understand, that would mean that in this case then, likelihood when you apply a compressor, you'd also be bringing up your noise, the noise that's attached to your microphone or to your audio signal. This can be a problem, right? So you do want to set it up to a high enough level, right, so that the noise to signal ratio is high. The difference between that is quite high, and that ensures that at least when you start applying dynamic plugins like compressors, then the noise will not pop up as much as in comparison to the vocal, right? Now, what I usually tell an artist is before we start, when I do my gain structure, right, before I start recording, I ask them to sing to their highest level, right? Or basically perform the song at the highest volume part, right? So maybe usually, let's say the chorus, right, is where they literally go loud, because that's where they go ham, because they want to just make sure that they catch the attention of the crowd or the listener. So what they would do then, in this case, is sing or perform the chorus part the way they would perform it when they are recording. In that manner, that allows you a fair chance to check your gain structure by basically bringing your gain knob either up or down, just to ensure that it either comes close to 12 or does not surpass negative 12 dB all the way up in such a way that it ends up clipping. You do want to always avoid clipping, right? And then that would also kind of then prevent you having a noise to signal ratio that's got or having clicks and pops or distortion happening on your vocal track. So to avoid any distortion from happening in your vocal track or your vocal recording, make sure that you do not surpass 12. To avoid you having a very low noise to signal ratio, just make sure that you work towards setting up your meter or your gain structure that the level of the vocal coming in at least messes around 12. If it does pass 12, just by a bit, but not all the time. You get what I'm saying? So as soon as you start seeing yellow in this section, do know that you've taken it a bit too far, right? Then lastly, we have creative editing. Now, creative editing is processes like pitch fixing, but in this case, to the level of autotune. Remember, when you're adding autotune, that's a creative approach. You're not correcting, you're adding an effect. You understand? That's part of creative editing. Another way we can define creative editing is maybe, let's say for example, there's an ad lib that I like here. I'm just gonna slice it out. All right, just hold on. There we go. I'm gonna slice that ad lib there, right? And I'm gonna turn that on, right? Let's say there's an ad lib I like here, but I noticed that it's not actually on every single part of the song, right? Or where I would like to hear it, basically. So now I can go shift, click, and drag to copy it and add it in every section of the song at the same spot, or every 4 bars, let's say, not every section, but let's say every 4 bars in this case. You get what I'm saying? So I can add this now all the way to the end, right? To introduce some entertaining parts within my track. Let's listen to it now with this part added on.
Every day.
Yeah. You get what I'm saying? So now, basically, I've applied that on all. Remember, it was only just at the first part and was not at the second, third, or fourth bar, and so on and so on. So then, part of my creative editing should be a case where you select or you check out things like ad-libs. How can you add more energy or more entertainment or more difference within the song before it goes into the mixing? So you take part in either production. You can also apply the same approach when you are editing guitars, when you are editing basically anything you've recorded. As long as you're editing, you can give it a more creative approach to improve the overall performance of the song and from the artist. You get what I'm saying? This ensures that your artist or the song basically comes out as entertaining as possible. That's the best way I can put it. Now, part of corrective editing is removing breaths, right? Now, I need you to understand this. When you are busy with breaths from a vocalist, right? You do not want to, especially with the lead vocal, you do not want to find yourself removing all the breaths that are there or removing them entirely. Please do not do that, because you want the lead vocal to sound as natural as possible. How can you expect someone who's basically listening to your song to expect you not to breathe throughout your whole song? It just sounds unrealistic. You get what I'm saying? And take into account when you're performing the song live, right? They're going to hear you pull in your breath. Pull it in and pull it out, right? So in general case, then what you do want to try to do is avoid using or removing breaths on your lead vocal. But what you can do is remove breaths from your backing vocals. So if you've got more than one backing vocals, or actually a backing vocal that runs alongside your audio track, including with its breaths, you do want to remove the breath from the backing vocals. This because you'll probably hear something like this. One breath will start early, maybe from your lead vocalist, the lead vocal. The other breath will start just a millisecond afterwards. The next breath of the other harmony will start just another millisecond afterwards. And what you are hearing before, because now you've applied compression and you've brought your vocal and it's sticking out. So what you're gonna hear is before it jumps into a phrase where there's an actual word, you're gonna hear you understand? And stuff before it actually jumps into the section where there is a vocal coming in. You understand? Which is undesirable. So what you do want to do is on your lead vocal, keep your breaths. If they're too high, I'm going to show you what you need to do to reduce them using automation or clip automation on FL Studio, right? And then on your backing vocals, what you do want to do is reduce your backing vocals is to remove it so that you only have one breath going out throughout the song. You understand? And since it's your lead and your lead is your main instrument in this case, you do want to make sure that the breath from the lead actually works well. So if you come across a loud breath, like let's say a very loud breath that you cannot avoid and you cannot ignore because it's messing up with the performance, of the song, what you can do is then right click in this area here, scroll down to automation and select automate and then select volume. This will then open up an automation line which is called volume multiplier, meaning that now in this case I can create automation, right, that would work to basically reduce the breaths that are now being applied or that come from my vocalist, right? So now I can easily go with my pencil tool, right, and click here, right click there, right, to create a breakpoint within my automation. And then again, right click there to create another breakpoint within my automation. I'm then gonna right click here to create another automation point because of the type of curve I want to create, right? So now to bring back the breath, let's say from here to here, the breath starts. So I can basically push this just a bit further, get it closer to the area where my breath is sitting, and then, or my breath starts, and then I can then create a curve, meaning that it's going to rise slowly, or what you can do, you can bring it like this if you want to. It's really up to you on how you want to use a fader in this case, or automation, to correct your breath, right? The other advantage here about having this automation clip going on here over the mixer track, or over the vocal track, is the mere fact that now I can obviously start then doing a bit of automation if I want to, which can help you reduce which can help you basically reduce the amount of compression your plug-in or your compressor applies when applied to the song, basically, or when applied to the vocal. You get what I'm saying? So generally, if you start automating now, you can target the loud parts and bring them down, which means then when you're applying compression, you do not have to make your compression work very hard. You understand? It's just dealing with the parts that are literally too high in comparison to other tracks. So you're just dealing with reducing dynamics more than trying to press very loud parts, which you would then clearly hear them being compressed by the compressor plugin, which we'll basically talk about that when we get to the mixing part using FL Studio. So now, for example, this part here is louder. Yeah, I can see that this part here is louder, if I may. So I can basically now kind of work on my loudness in terms of just reducing it a bit for this track. You get what I'm saying? And now I can basically, I know that after this, then my song is nicely, or my vocal is nicely leveled. And what I want you guys to understand is that you can separate. You can, that's C-A-N, that means it's very possible, Obama levels, to separate this automation track that's been created on top of your on top of your audio track on its own, and you can put it right there and then start automating accordingly. But obviously it's nice to work on top of the track so that you can easily be able to mess around with the thing directly with automation directly over the audio signal, right? That's a very nice thing or tool to have, to be able to automate that. And then by the time you actually are finished editing, you've also kind of sorted out the loud parts that are kind of irritating or that are ruining the song. Then you can apply compression to reduce dynamics, which in turn then doesn't have to press or work that hard, simply because you have reduced those parts, the loud parts, using automation, right? Okay, cool guys. That basically then covers our section or our video for today, basically based on vocal recording and processing. So chapter 9 has been covered in full. You know about editing, you know about NuTone, you know about Vocodex, and you know how to record and set up Studio within FL and also within Studio B, right? So please do give yourself a chance, book Studio, practice, and start recording on your assignments. For the plugins that I did not include in the lesson, like Pitcher, yeah, and also, I think it was just Pitcher that I did not include in this lesson. Oh yes, and Fruity Vocoder, that's the other one. You guys can check out cool videos that I've posted on Sims just to learn more and see how other people use the plugins. You never know, it might be mind-opening apart from what we've just shown you, which is the most obvious function for vocoders. But when you watch other people use the plugins, you can easily learn how to use or find different ways or different new ways of using that plugin and creating all new sounds. And that's how you learn how to use a plugin. You get what I'm saying? That's one of the many ways you can learn how to master a plugin and use it to your benefit, right? So please make sure that those you watch, and also do the projects that are in the test book. They are very vital. You get what I'm saying? Apply them, man, because you're going to be learning a lot about them. You understand? You're going to learn a lot about the information that's there from those projects that you can basically do practically, which prepares you for your assignment also. Right. Thank you very much, guys, for joining me and being patient. Our apologies again for the video now just being 2 parts. We did face an error when we were recording. I remember I did try recording twice, and in both cases that failed. Like, yeah, Camtasia done quit on me just like that. So in this case now, guys, just do know that the other lessons are also available on Sims. Please make sure that you read everything that's associated on Sims, that's associated with chapter number 9. Watch all those videos and expand your production skills by knowing the arsenal you have that you can use for your projects. Okay, guys, enjoy the rest of the day, and I will see you in class next week. Shout outs.